It was the men who led this teenage rampage, and didn't they look glam? The king of teens.
You kind of watch with your parents, and if everyone's squirming uncomfortably, you know it must be something good.
The chameleon king.
When we left, he cut his hair and painted his nails and shaved his eyebrows.
The king of the crowd.
The other guys in the band, their parents used to say to him, "You'll never get anywhere with that singer, all he does is shout."
The king of cool.
He was a fantastically glamorous figure. And there wasn't a guy in Britain who didn't think, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
The girl who would be king.
I had stuck to my guns. I thought, this is where I'm going. I don't care if there's a place for me or not. I'm going to find a place.
If Noddy was the ultimate crowd pleaser, our next king liked to keep himself aloof.
Make me a deal and make it straight.
Bryan Ferry came across like some quite suave sort of matinee idol, and it was as if Humphrey Bogart had become a pop star or something.
He had a real vision, a real idea of what he wanted to put across, and a remarkable talent.
This ice-cool performer set himself above the rest of the glam rock crowd and created an alternative artistic universe where sophistication was all.
They managed to make everyone feel like they were an aristocrat.
Step forward the cool king, Bryan Ferry. Bryan Ferry was a miner's son from County Durham who grew up with dual passions, music and the cinema. By the early 60s, he'd shaken the coal dust from his shoes and enrolled at art college. A talented student, it was at college he started performing in bands. And after graduating, he spent every spare moment writing and composing his own music.
I first met Bryan. He came into the office we had on the King's Road, clutching a cassette, I think. I mean, he was painting and decorating, I think, at the time, struggling. I put the tape on, and it was fantastic.
Ferry had an album's worth of material, producers who loved it, but no musicians. He put together an eclectic team, including on synthesizer, one Brian Peter George St. John Le Baptiste de la Salle, Eno, and Roxy music was born.
Roxy was very much Bryan Ferry's lyrical and narrative journey that we provided a sort of musical context for, to sort of live out his dream.
Couldn't sleep awake last night. Oh, how I'd love to hold you tight.
By the time the first album hit the shelves 6 months later, the music press were heralding them as the next big thing.
We got into what I call a classic hype situation. We had the Melody Maker and the NME with a huge amount of hype, and it was actually the hype almost overtook the band in a funny sort of way. They were described as sort of musically much more developed than they were, and I think they, almost was in danger of exploding themselves, but actually they did manage to carry it off.
In the background, you hear some very strange sounds.
What we thought we were doing in the early Roxy sound and what people heard were not necessarily the same thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Roxy music!
We thought we were being, in some ways, not particularly unconventional. We thought we were playing rock and roll, soul, and I think the way it came out was a bit more peculiar.
Broken parties making a strange goodbye.
Bryan's voice brought a distinctive new sound to glam rock.
Bryan had oodles of character in his voice. It was fantastic.
And you've got this wholly kind of over-the-top, almost operatic projection. I mean, you can almost say actually gloriously melodramatic at times.
But it can't be strand power.
Melancholic glamour.
Yes. You love it, don't
I
you?
do. Well, I know you love a bit of melancholy, don't you?
Oh, we love melancholy.
Bryan constructed a movie star image for himself And he had the leading ladies to go with it, many of whom appeared on his album covers.
The sirens on the front, you know, the Jerry Hall album covers, the kind of sexy women dressed in rubber with dogs on leads and all of that. It summed up an era.
This is, don't forget, in the days when people used to travel around the streets holding albums under their arm. Advertisements of how cool and sophisticated we were.
Right now, here is a great piece of music.
Bryan and Roxy Music continued their reign as ultimate arbiters of cool when they released their first single.
Virginia Plain didn't make the album for some convoluted reason, and much to our disgust.
Make me a deal and make it straight. Must sign and seal, I take it.
Total commercial suicide, really. We loved singles. Thought it was a great sort of 3-minute art form. We decided to record a single after the album and not include it on the album.
Try to make the big time.
They always had a bit of folklore with it. They said, Virginia Plain. It's not just a girl, it's the name on a packet of cigarettes, you know, which is kind of really art school. It's the stuff guys pass around with each other, you know, it's inventing trivia. It's inventing your own folklore.
It really is great lyrics. All of us at our best. It was terrific, actually.
Key things about Virginia Plain is the way it starts straight in, which takes immense confidence. And it stops just like that.
What's her name? Virginia Plain? That was a good impression, wasn't it?
You know, which I don't think any other record does.
The release of the single finally earned Roxy a spot on Top of the Pops and instantly won Bryan Ferry a whole new raft of fans who just wanted to be him.
Hey, good-looking boys, gather around.
You know, I was brought up in Blackburn, and even Blackburn had this little glam club. Basically, you went to listen week after week after week to the same music, to do the same dance, to see the same people. It was always this, you put your fingers that way and you put your things that way, and it was kind of shuffling around. And it was amazing, even in a town that small, how many people dressed exactly like Bryan Ferry.
You'd entered that imaginary world. You know, you'd become a participant.
By 1973, everyone was copying the band's glam style.
We always wanted to be one step ahead. So we said, right, what we'd do is completely change.
Aggravated, spare for days.
I always think of the shows, all the fans at the front were in last season, what you call last season's clothes, yes. And there he was with his new one. You could just see their little faces going, oh, that was very funny.
But Ferry's image changes went beyond Roxy. He was also pursuing a parallel solo career. Different music, different persona, same hypnotising vocals. And as the 70s went on, he spent less and less time with a now fading Roxy.
I closed my eyes and danced till dawn.
By the 80s, it just ran out of steam, I think, because it evolved into something totally different. And that's why we sort of gave up for 18 years and then had a break.
Once on the cutting edge, over the next 2 decades, Ferry specialised in nostalgia. Then in 2005, 18 years after they last performed together, Ferry took Roxy Music back out on the road, converting a new generation over to his glam rock anthems.
I didn't want to hurt you. I'm just a